And I'd like to see you all seniors in the hallway next year. Just keep it. Alright, so now part B, if you missed it, screenshot this. And pause this. Sorry, no explanation. Come to class. Alright, part B. So now we're doing the sine function. Y equals the sine. There you go. Change once. That's been translated pi units up. So where is that going to go? On the outside or inside?
Yeah, like plus pi.
Good. It's going up, so we're going to say plus pi out here. It's okay to translate pi up. You don't do it very often. What? I don't care. Here, you do it first. And then 3 units to the right. That's going to go inside. Plus 3 or minus 3? Minus 3. If you talked out loud and volunteered, you can give yourself another point. All right, are we good with those?
So you don't get it points because it's on the recording.
Replay it. Point. You're at home, you don't get points because you didn't come to school. All right, moving on.
Yay.
So now we're going to graph. The very first thing, if I were to write steps, is I would start by highlighting any sort of up and down shifts. If you would like a highlighter, I technically would probably have more than one. I don't really care if you want to use different colors. I have more highlighters over there if you want them. I would start by saying, well, my graph goes up 3, so I'm going to highlight my new 0. It's not really the 0, but that's where I'm going to center everything around, right? Then you have to kind of ignore the numbers. After you do that, my second step will be like the translations left-right. We don't have to worry about that on these first 2 problems. After I do that, I just look at this sign. This is my new midline. So does sine start at 0 or does it start at 1? Starts at 0. So I'm going to put my first point on here. Then you have to check what the period is. There's no number right here. So what's just the standard period for a sine function? Meaning, where does it end? At 2 pi. Good. So if it starts here, it ends here. Now with the sine function, if it starts and stops at 0, where's the middle point? 0. So starts and stops at 0, middle point 0. And then halfway between these first 2 points, it will be where? Up 1, so that's going to be at the 4. And halfway between the other 2 points, it's down 1. And then you just follow that same pattern on both sides to get the rest of the graph. Like that. Exactly the same, we're just shifting it up and down. Okay, so now what? Part B. Let's talk about a cosine shift. Where's my new midline? Down 1. So now everything's going to be centered around this midline. Cosine, does cosine start 1 above or does it start on the midline? Yeah, the cosine function starts at 1, so that's kind of the most important thing for you to memorize, right? Cosine starts at 1, sine starts at 0. And then I guess the pattern, or the period would be 2 pi, so it's going to start at 0, end at 2 pi. Halfway between that, where will you be? At the negative 1. Halfway between those, you're at 0. And as soon as you know kind of you need to know the distance between your 5-point pattern. We talked about a 5-point pattern on each of those 2 days where it's 1, 0, and negative 1, 0. As soon as you know the distance between your first 2 points, you can just kind of finish the pattern. Does that make sense what I just said? So it's exactly the same, we're just moving it up and down. Any questions? All right, let's try the next one. Now we're going to do the horizontal shifts. So when you're moving things around, the first step is to highlight any midline shifts. The second step would be to highlight the period. Let me think about how okay, yeah, that's what I meant. Now, the period could change two different ways. The size of the period could go from 2 pi down to pi, and the period could be shifting left and right. Does that make sense? So on this one, you need to figure out how big the period is based on if there's a number right here. If that's just a 1, the period will still be the 2 pi. Is that okay? I don't really worry about highlighting my midline if it doesn't move up or down. I don't generally highlight the midline. But the new phase has been shifted. Pi halves to the what? To the right. So it used to start at 0. Now where does it start? Hang on with this. It now starts at pi halves. And it used to end at 2 pi halves. It now ends where? At 5 pi halves. So this is my new kind of, not really the x-axis or the y-axis, but it kind of is, right? This is my new starting spot. After you get about one of those, cosine, does cosine start at 1 or does it start at 0? At 1. So you have your midline, starts up at 1. Whoops. Let's try that again. Starts at 1, ends at 1. Halfway between those two, -1. Halfway between those two, 0. And then you have your pattern, right? 1, 0, -1, 0, 1, 0, -1, 0, and then go on the other side. What function does this one look like? Once we shift it pi halves that way, it now looks like the what function? The sine function. So that's how I would deal with any sort of like horizontal changes. So let's do it again. Oh, that's fun. This one's moving pi fourths where? To the left. Now pi fourths is where compared to these boxes? It's right in between them. So my new kind of axis, we'll just assume is right here. Is the period still 2 pi? No. Is there a number right here? No. So the period's still 2 pi. It's not going to end at 2 pi anymore. It's going to do what? Shift. But the distance between my two lines, is that still 2 pi? Yeah. So sine starts at 0 or starts at 1? 0. So it's going to start at 0. It's going to end at 0. Finding the halfway between those is halfway between which two? Is that okay? Like right in the middle would be here. And then between those two would be where? Up 1. And then now you have your pattern, right? So it's every half box. So 0, 1, 0, -1. Look at it. If you make a mistake, okay.
Where else can I go here?
Got it. Don't go crying to me if you're going to move on right now.
Yeah, well, trust me, I'll be done.
Alright. Alright. Try to make them look curvy. Watch your ends to make sure it doesn't go above this point. Don't get super excited that you're done and shift it up. And there she be. We have an assembly tomorrow, right? Do y'all know what color you're supposed to wear? Oh, crud. Blue. All right. Before we, okay, we're pausing. We are now recording again. I don't know, I'm not on the homework yet. Remember that whole don't go crying to me if you have questions? All right, now let's look at example 5. If we use, if we use the same, I don't know, we didn't have an artist, like a class artist when I was in high school. Or was she? All right, ladies and gentlemen, can we hear you do one more of these before we go? At the top of this page, we should have gotten an instruction on like step 1 you do this, step 2 you do this, yes? So, and I guess technically they could be flip-flopped, but step 1, what do we do? We're going to look at the new midline. So the midline on this new problem is where? -2. Highlight the midline. Then, Asher, then we do what? After we highlight the midline, we highlight the shift. So this shift, yes please. This shift, yes please. This shift is pi to the what? Now, technically pi to the left and pi to the right would end up being the same if the period is still 2 pi, right? Is that okay? If the period is only pi, I guess then it doesn't anyway. Pi to the left. So depending on how big the period is, you probably should look at that as well. On this one, the period is just 2 pi still. It hasn't changed. So this is where it starts. 2 pi over would be here. Is that okay? And then if you want to label all of them, you can, but you don't have to. After you do that, you use the new grid that you've made to graph what you're already used to graphing. Can you guys do this, Matthew, or is it too low? Go a little bit higher. So this is a sine function. Does sine start at 1 or 0?
0.
So you go to your first kind of cross right here, starts at 0. Then it ends at 0. Every highlighted mark that you've made is at 0. The negative pi? Oh, yes, I screwed up. Willow, point. My new 0 isn't at the 0, it's where? At the -2. I forgot to shift it down. Thank you. Then halfway between there, where are we at? It's the sine function. We're still at 0. Halfway between there, we're at the amplitude. So you need to check the amplitude next. Hold on, and then you can go. The amplitude in this case is 1, right? So you go 0, 1, 0, -1, 0, 1, 0, -1, 0, 1. Graph that and you can go to lunch. Then you just curve it. Yep. We have someone getting checked out very soon, so we want to keep going. Just kind of an FYI, it is possible that you may see this -2 out in front, and it would say -2 plus 2 cosine x. It's going to be given, like it's the same thing. That -2, even if it's out front, will still raise it up 2 units, or down 2 units. Okay, so let's start this one. Where's the midline? Midline at -2 again. And what about the phase shift? Is there one? No. What has changed on this problem though? So no phase shift. If there was, it would have been right here. But the amplitude has changed. So this cosine normally starts at the 0 or at the amplitude. Yeah, it usually starts at that one. So from my midline, it is 2 above. The period hasn't changed. So at 2 pi, it's 2 above my midline. And halfway between those two, it is what? 2 below the midline. Between those two, it's where? At the midline. And then now do we have our pattern? We know how much it is between each box? And just make sure it does not cross this top line or the bottom line. Can we hit the, or shut the door? Thanks, Dan. And there it is. Any questions oh sorry, Caitlin. Any questions so far? It feels very similar, right? We just have to shift things down or maybe left and right. All right, let's look at the next page. Okay, we've got 2 more to practice before we're gonna start going crazy with it. On your own, if you will get the midline change and that period shift, that phase shift, thank you. If you'll get the midline change and the period shift or the phase shifts highlighted, highlighted. Plus 1 moves midline up 1. That minus 1/2 moves the function right 1/2. So the period is still 2 pi. So it was at 2 pi, it's going to be 5 pi half. And then, so each period will take 4 boxes. So this one would be just off the graph. Okay, cosine, does cosine start at 0 or at 1? Cosine starts at 1. So it's going to start 1 above the midline and 1 above the midline. Halfway between those two, it's at the negative amplitude. And halfway between those two is at the 0, so at the midline.
Can I just draw the midline? Can I just draw that?
Sorry, what?
Can I just draw the midline?
The midline?
Yeah.
And it will be helpful for me when I grade this to see the midline and then to see the period stuff in
I
it.
show the period, but it's like not on the half.
Do you want us to draw, like, to highlight all of the periods?
Just at least one.
We are an example on it. Did you do that one?
Yeah.
Really not. Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that one. Never mind, I'm doing the line.
Okay. What about part D? So this is the sine function. Has the midline moved? No. Midline stays. Ish. But the phase has moved 3 to the what? 3 pi's to the left. So it's really hard to move this one, right? My next one would be at 2 pi, because the original parent graph is here, and then at 2 pi, then at 4 pi, right? So that's the original function. If we were to move those 3 pi to the left, this one would be completely off the grid. This one would be where? At negative pi, which is almost on the grid, we can put it on. And then the one that used to be at 4 pi is now where? Try again. At pi. And then confirm, this says the period is 2 pi. Is that 2 pi between those two green lines? So moving it 3 pi is exactly the same as moving at pi, because 3 pi and pi are coterminal angles, right? So going back to that word that we used before, because those are coterminal angles, moving at 3 pi to the left is pretty much the same as moving at pi to the left. All right, so does sine start at 0 or does it start at 1?
So you mean 3 pi is in like
0?
the way 3 pi half?
Because doesn't that look like we just moved it pi over? That's what I'm saying. We moved it 3 pi over, it's just that it's the same graph as if we were to move it pi over. So sine starts at 0. Halfway between the zeros we're going to be at 0. Halfway between those two, this is my starting spot, halfway between those two, where are you? At 1/2. And then that's the pattern. So 0, 1/2, 0, negative 1/2, 0, 1/2, 0, negative 1/2, 0. And there it is. Questions with that one? But give you a chance to work on it and just, do you know what time you're going to be checked out, Savannah? Probably soon. So So rather than giving you a chance to work on it, let's hurry and push through so that everyone gets a chance to see most of the lesson, if at all possible. But no questions moving forward? All right. So now what has changed? Now we have something changing the period here, something changing the period here. Between part A and part B, which one's going to be the really wide function? A or B? B. Why? Why is this one going to be wide and this one going to be a little bit tighter? Yeah, this guy's less than 1. If you volunteered that answer, go ahead and give yourself a point. This means I'm only going to have a half of a cycle in the first 0 to 2 pi interval. So this one will be wide. All right, so what's changed here? The first step is to mark the midline. So the midline has gone where? Down 2. Now I need to know where the first phase starts. Normally it starts at 0, but that negative pi force moves the starting spot 1 to the right. So then we'll mark our starting spot. Now we need to look at how big the period is, because in the past it was 2 pi, but in this case it's not anymore. The period is 2 pi divided by b, which is 2. So this number right here is your b value. So the period is pi long. Each box is worth 1/2. So if I want to make my next one be pi over, how many boxes do I need to move over? So each box is pi half, or yeah, pi halves, right? From 0 to here is pi halves. So 2 boxes would be pi. So if this is my first one, move over 1 box, 2 box, that would be the length of the first phase, or first period. And then, as the length of the sine or cosine changes, I think it becomes easier if you mark every single start-stop, but it's not necessary. There it is.
Savannah Alonso to attendance for checkout.
Sure thing. Okay, so once you have those 2 marked, you're going to look at your amplitude. Amplitude is 1 here. Sine starts at 1. Savannah, I'll make sure this gets online as soon as we're done.
Okay, thank you.
Sine starts at 1, so at our first kind of cross section right here. Sine starts at 1? No, I said that wrong. Sine starts at 0. I mark my zeros. And there would be 1 right here. And there would be 1 right here. Halfway between your zeros, where are you? You're at 0 again. And halfway between those zeros, you are at your amplitude, in this case is 1. So at the starting line, I'm 1 higher, which is here. 0, 1 lower, 0. 1 higher, 0, 1 lower, 0. 1 higher, 1 lower, higher, 1 lower. And then we can go in the negative direction as well. So these amplitudes are actually happening at that crossbar where you can like actually see the X, right? Kiko, are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Get that a little bigger. So each of these up, high, lower should be at the nice cross mark. Then should look something like that. Deep breath, you got this? Any questions? Smile? Yeah, good. Grimace?
No.
All right. Okay, so let's do it again. Obviously, the first time you see something weird, it's a little unsettling. Let's do it again.
Wait a minute, Ashley.
Maybe the grimace we just saw will turn a little bit more into a...
Wait a minute.
My poor son, every time he
why'd
tries
you
to
do
smile,
one
it...
half?
Yes.
Why'd you do
That's what's going to make the period change. So the length of the cycle change.
Okay.
So because it was 2 sine, or sine of 2, and then the parentheses, b was 2, which means between 0, which was sort of this, and 2 pi, which is kind of this, we just moved it, I should have 2 full start stops.
Okay.
So to get the period, you take 2 pi, because that's kind of the standard full rotation of the unit circle, divide by 2, because that was b, that gave us the length between our green lines. So let's just do the whole process again.
Can't you just draw the normal so I can move it down because it's 1/4? And then you can just fill in the points there because it's 2. It'll make it a lot easier than trying to draw the work done.
Okay, start by drawing your midline. Where is it? Midline's at 2. Okay. Then you want to look at your, like the starting line where it shifts. So it has been moved pi halves to the left. So you can't do anything more than this until you know how long the period is. How do you determine how long the period is? 2 pi over b, and what is b in this case? Is 1/2. Good. So how do you divide 2 pi with 1/2? If you have 2 bananas and you cut them both in half, how many pieces do you have now?
4.
This is 4 pi. Good. So from this start line to the end, it has to be 4 pi. Now this would have been the end if we didn't move it left 1 box, right? So instead of right here, we move it left 1 box. Good. So that is your full start-stop cycle. This is 1 cycle between the 2 green lines. Did that make a little bit more sense this time? Okay. Now with the cosine, cosine usually starts at 1. In this case, I'm not starting at 1, I'm starting at -2, so it's been flipped because of this. So right here, -2. So it will be at 0 because that's, we moved up 2. So it's going to start, now when I say -2, I mean -2 from my midline, right? I'm just counting 2 boxes down. So technically it's at 0, but I'm not going to worry about those. It's just 2 down. And then go over here, 2 down. And halfway between that would be where? At 3 pi halves, it's going to be 2 up. Because if I went 2 down on my ends, I have to be 2 up in the middle, right? And did I hit right in the middle? The whole thing's 8 boxes, so 4 and 4. Good. Now halfway between those is at pi halves. That's where I hit my midline. So negative, down, 0, up, 0, down. Now it technically goes off the grids. It helps if you want to put it on there, you can. Fun. Fun. Any questions on that one? Was it better the second time? Yeah. How many more of these do we have?
That's it.
That's it? All right. Let's just, is this the steps? Okay, so let's see how we did. I didn't even read this. So find the parent function, including amplitude and period. Change. Graph the parent function within 5-point pattern. We did that. We just didn't say it, right? 0 up, 0 down, 0, whatever. Mark the midline. Sketch pretty wave. Awesome. Thanks for watching. Peace out. The teacher that wrote this